Linda here, and today's post is going to be about how I completed the Tough Mudders this past weekend. With this post, I'm going to actually be going over some of the obstacles that I found were challenging, as well as some pointers that I think you might need if you are in fact going to be doing one in the near future. I'm just going to break it down by the night of as well as the day of. So for starters, I'm going to go over nutrition and hydration. For the night before, you want to stay hydrated. You want to just increase your normal hydration by a little bit. You don't want to go too much. You also want to drink waters that's infused with electrolytes. You could use sports drinks like Powerade or Gatorade. I personally use what's called O water, which is just a regular water that's infused with electrolytes and some natural flavoring. For food's sake, you don't want to change up your routine. You want to just basically stick with foods that you normally eat. For me, I personally ate Amy's mac and cheese along with some Lebanese. I had some stuffed grape leaves, stuffed eggplant, as well as some Lebanese salad and pita bread. I had a little bit of everything because I didn't want to overstuff myself, and you shouldn't. You want to eat until you feel full. With regards to the carb loading, some places say you shouldn't, some say you should. I personally, I increased it a little bit, but not too much. You know, I thought that was important to get some in, but not too much. For sleeping purposes, with regards to what you should and shouldn't do, you should at least get from 7 to 8 hours of sleep. For me, I went to bed on time, but because I was a little bit anxious, I actually didn't get my full 8 hours sleep, so I probably got around 6. So that's okay. I was okay for the event day. For breakfast, you normally want to just stick to foods that you normally eat. For me, I had woken up at 5. My event start time was 9:20, so I had about 4.5 hours there. So what I did was when I woke up, I had a bowl of Kashi lean, Go Lean, along with some almond milk, and I had that initially. And then around 7 o'clock, I had a Shakeology shake along with the banana thrown in. I use a banana because bananas have more potassium, and the potassium helps down with cramping, or it helps keep down cramping, which, you know, I'm in a race, so, you know, you're going to have cramping. Okay, so those two things were important for nutritional basis. Also, I kept hydrating throughout until I got there, so I was drinking along the way. When I got there a little bit earlier, so I was able to meet with my team members and, you know, BS for a little bit. And, you know, when our start time was coming in, we got into this whole area, and, you know, you could feel the spirit of the event, the camaraderie, and it was really awesome. And from there, it's basically 9:20, we were out on the gate, and basically the first real obstacle, it's not even an obstacle, it's called Braveheart's Charge. Basically, it's at Mount Snow in Vermont, which is a ski resort. So it's a red zone, the ski incline. So we're going up a pretty steep incline, and we're going up levels, and you basically have to reach the top, obviously. So we're going up, and my legs, you know, already they're talking to me. So it's definitely something that I didn't anticipate. Now, throughout the entire event, you know, mind you, it's a 10-mile event. It's through up and down the mountainside, and I'm not talking molehills. These are mountains. You are so, you're going to be going up and down them throughout the entire event. There was one particular event, I'm not exactly sure, it was probably like midway through. It was probably a pitch about 40 to 45 degrees, and it was basically, I was crawling up, and I didn't want to stand because I was so scared that I was going to fall back, and I came so far, so I basically crawled up very few people were able to stand up and get through, but majority of everybody was just climbing up on hands and knees, so that was pretty interesting. This event is called Tough Mudders for a reason. There is so much mud. It's not just like small swats of mud here and there. It's through the entire course. So if you plan on trying to stay clean, don't, because you're going to get dirty no matter what. Like, I got filthy and I accepted it, so I was okay with being totally dirty. I'm going to go over some of the obstacles that I found challenging for myself. The first one is called an Arctic enema, and it's funny name, but basically it's a big vat of ice water, and you have to jump in and swim to the other side, right? So I had me and my friend, my teammate Tim here, and we're counting on 3 and we're jumping in. So all I remember is jumping in and just swimming. Like, I didn't think about it. I was just like, I swam and I swam and I swam. I didn't want to pop my head up and just had to go back under. So it was swam, and I remember getting to the other side and being able to pull my upper body out. But the problem was my legs locked up because it was just so cold, shock effect. So I had to have Tim like help get me over. Now at that time, like, everything was numb and I couldn't run at that point. I was just like, I had to like warm up a bit. So that was really intense. The next one is called the Bull Shrinker, another funny name, I think. For this particular obstacle, I think it was probably one of the harder ones for me because it kind of put me against my fear. Now, basically, it's a cable that's going over a lake, and you basically have to go backwards. And I think this is the issue that I was a little bit concerned of, with just going backwards. And you're hand over hand with your legs holding onto the cable, and your hand over hand getting across. Now, mind you, it's Tough Mudders, there's tons of mud, it's very slippery and wet, and there's tons of people. So we're just like waiting, right? So I get up and I'm able to go a little bit in, and then I couldn't hold on anymore, I was slipping. So I just plunged into the water. Now, I've been swimming since I'm a kid, so I don't have any problems. I know many different strokes, and I've always felt very comfortable. But when I plunged into that water and I come up, I had water in my mouth, and like, there was staff members in kayaks, and they're like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm okay." And I remember there was a rope, and I was just like pulling myself across. Now, the water was so cold, and all I could think to myself is I had to get across. I had to get across. And it was so cold that like I felt like my body again was shutting down. I was not used to it. I almost felt like I was going to drown, but all I kept thinking to myself is I had to get across. And I finally got across. I was okay once I got across. I was like, oh my gosh, that was terrible. But overall, it wasn't, you know, in the end, I was okay with the fact that I was able to complete the obstacle. The next one, water obstacle, is called walk the plank, which is like exactly like it says. So you got a platform, and it's over a lake, and you basically jump down. Now, I don't know how high it is, the actual platform is, but I remember there was a couple mudders, and they went before me because I was kind of scared because I'm fearful of heights. So I remember there was a staff member there, and he's like telling me how to jump in, and he's like, you could go at your shoulders or at your sides for your arms. And I just basically crossed my heart and hope to die. And I held my nose. Now, for all of the obstacles, I never thought about them. I just jumped in. So I just jumped in here, and I went all the way down, and I'm like coming up. Thankfully, there wasn't very much water I had to swim through. So the shoreline was very close to where I was. So I swam over, and I remember there was a staff member on the sideline. She's like, "You can start walking now." And I'm like trying to walk, but I couldn't because I'm not tall enough. I'm only 5'4". So I finally got out of it. It was good to go. Excuse me. There's 2 particular ones that I didn't anticipate this. It's called the boa constrictor and dirty holes. Basically, you're crawling down into the ground through PVC piping, and if there's dirty water and mud, and that's not the problem. I didn't anticipate the fact that the bottom or the base of it would actually be rocks and gravel. So like you'd have to crawl through, and like I didn't anticipate it. But if you could tell, my arms and my knees got really scratched up and bruised really bad. So at one point I'm like I slip, and I just, you know, I slipped and I got all cut up. So I didn't anticipate that, so I was kind of like, oh man. So that wasn't too expected nor too good. The shock treatment. Shock treatment, initially I watched some videos prior to the event, and the shock treatment was for me it was kind of scary. It was like, oh my gosh, that's terrible. It was actually a breeze. It was so simple to get through. It was, I remember laughing every time I got shocked. Like, there's a space where you're trying to meander through, and you don't know which line is going to be charged, And I'm like, I remember just trying to get through, and I'm like, duh, you don't know which one is going to be charged. So I just like, at that point I was like, whatever. So I'm just crawling and I'm getting through and I'm getting shocked. I'm like, haha, funny. So, you know, for those that are afraid of the shock therapy, it's okay. It's really, it's so quick. You get through and it's funny. You laugh at yourself for getting shocked. They have water stations throughout the event. They probably have around 4 of them. They also have bananas. Again, like I was saying earlier, the bananas are definitely there to help you with your cramping, with the potassium. I cramped up severely. There was some flat levels, funny, huh? Some flat levels throughout the entire course. And I remember at one point I was walking on one of the flats and I was cramping severely. And like, this is where the camaraderie, I think, comes into play. It's like, you know, people from my team, they were like, are you okay? And then people that were passing, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm okay. I was getting cramps. So definitely expect to cramp up, but keep on plugging through. Just keep on pressing yourself and you'll be okay in the long run. The things that I think that are of a concern for the day of your event, there's going to be some pointers I'm throwing out here. Don't wear any jewelry. I actually wore studs, and they're the ones they have currently in. I took them out. The reason being is I didn't want them to get filthy, because you're going to get filthy. You can also get them snagged on one of the obstacles, or you can lose them, so you don't want any of that. So definitely don't wear any jewelry. I would suggest you wear long pants as well as a long shirt that are wicking. All your clothes should be wicking. I suggest long pants no matter what time of the year you're doing it. And the reason being is because you're going to get cut up. And you want to avoid that the best way you can. And I wouldn't be too concerned for overheating, because you are, again, you're going through water obstacles. They're definitely going to cool you down, as well as there's going to be like muddy, swampy sections. That's going to help cool you down, especially on your feet. My feet always get really hot when I run, but that definitely helped with the cooling. So protect yourself. I think that would be very useful in the long run. I'm going to tell you a little bit of experience that I had at the end of the race. I was at my 9th mile marker, and at that point in time, my body was kaput. I was just done. So I remember at this point, I was just like going through the motions. I wasn't thinking anymore. I was disoriented, and I was just like in a fog. I remember thinking to myself, I was in in the desert looking for the oasis. So I was just going. I wasn't thinking about it, and I remember passing the finish line, and there was a bunch of staff everywhere, and a few of them came up to me, and they're like, you need water? I'm like, no, I don't need water. And another one came over with a space blanket. You need one? I'm like, no, I'm good. All I can remember was running over to a banana station and eating a banana. I was like, you know, I needed some fuel. I got my t-shirt, and I'm like going inside to the lodge, and I just needed to sit down for a moment and like to get some kind of stability. And I remember sitting there, and I was like shaking. I was a little chilly, and I remember I was hungry. I really needed fuel. So I remember going back outside, asking the staff, hey, can you call my friends over to Intercom? I actually got separated from my team. And he's like, no, unfortunately we don't have that. So I'm like, well, I don't have money because it's in my bag, and I really need to eat. And he was awesome. He gave me money, and I was able to go inside and get some food. He's like, you know, there's some pizza in there. And I was like, no, I can't eat pizza. I'm vegan. So he's like, fine, get PB&J. So I got PB&J. It was like the best thing on earth. It hit the spot. So remember, I'm about to eat my sandwich, and one of my teammates come in, and he's like, oh my gosh, Cora, there you are. We were looking for you. You don't look so good. I'm like, I don't feel so good. And so I was like, hey, can you go get Kelly? Because she has my bag, and I really need to pay this guy back. He was he was awesome. He gave me some money. And he's like, yeah, sure. So I start eating my sandwich, and I only got like halfway through before he got back. And I was like, immediately I started recovering. I felt so much better. And he's like, yeah, you look great. I was like, yeah, I just needed some fuel. And so I was able to finish off my sandwich, and then I was ready for another round of it. So it definitely, I was at that point before, I was like literally shaking. My heart was palpitating so fast. Like I remember going into the cafe to get my sandwich, and I got a cup of tea to warm me up a bit. I was shaking so bad that I needed to stabilize myself, because if I didn't, I was about to like fall over and die, I think. But I just got the fuel in, and I was really good to go. So all in all, after everything that's been said and done, I think I have earned my right to say through the cuts, scrapes, bruises, shocks, and cramps that I earned my right to be called a Tough Mudder. So I'm excited for this. If you like my video, subscribe.